Today on CityCast DC. So here's a hot take. Food halls kind of stress me out. There's too many options and not enough standout bites. So when I heard DC was getting yet another one in the form of a chain called Wonder, I had my doubts, to say the least. Anna Spiegel from Axios joins us to dish on DC's newest food hall chain and whether or not they're actually worth the hype. Today is Wednesday, October 12th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Anna, I am so glad you are here because I could not think of somebody better to have this conversation with. So here in DC, we've been seeing these food halls cropping up over the last few years. I had a terrible experience, perhaps the worst dining experience, definitely of the year, but it was just really, really bad at Wonder.
Oh, no.
And it left me wondering, what is this place? What's going on? I think that Wonder, it kind of represents this sort of, this new idea of what we think of as a food hall. Is Wonder the new Tate? Is it the new Foxtrot? What is happening here?
Yeah, I wondered the same thing, and it's not an easy answer, hence maybe the name and hence maybe the many long articles explaining what exactly it is. And I think, Wonder, other folks would say that it's both a platform and a virtual food hall. They started in 2021 in New York with e-commerce billionaire founder Mark Lowry from diapers.com, walmart.com, founding this organization as a way to, quote unquote, solve dinner. And since then, they've acquired vast amounts of capital. Bloomberg valued them at $7 billion most recently. They've acquired Grubhub. They've acquired a Blue Apron. So they do have this platform that makes them, partly it's a delivery service. You can order from local restaurants or chain restaurants like Popeye off of the Wonder platform. You can order Blue Apron delivery kits. And you can also order from these virtual food hall locations. Now there are 6 locations in DC area and counting.
This actually makes so much sense that it's being funded and propped up by tech billionaire money, because it does sort of feel like somebody took the soullessness of exploring a tech platform and was like, what if this was also your meal? That was the experience of eating there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the owner, this is what they want to be. They said themselves, they want to be the Amazon of food. Do you want to eat Amazon? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you do. The ideal for them is, from what I've heard from interviews, delivering convenience, speed, and also, one of their big selling points is that you have these virtual, quote unquote, food halls, because I don't know if anybody would get Union Market and a Wonder mixed up, but you have, 25 plus, quote unquote, restaurants, basically menus under one roof that can turn out 600 plus SKUs of dishes. And that means, you and your family, you can have a Bobby Flay steak, the kids can have chicken tenders, your healthy, kids can have poke and other things of that sort. And it all comes from one place.
So that was what I was thinking, who might this experience? And I'm only one person. I only ate there once, so I don't want to besmirch the entire brand. But the only thing I could think was, let's say that you've got mom, dad, kids, grandma, auntie, uncle, and you're all taking a trip to see the sights to DC. And it's one of those experiences where you have underestimated the amount of walking there's going to be. You've underestimated some of the weather concerns. Everybody's miserable. In those situations where you're like, I want everybody to be able to get exactly whatever random thing they want to eat. Mm-hmm. And we're already miserable, so this day couldn't get much worse. I think Wonder would be a perfect use case for that exact scenario.
Exactly. But is that exact scenario going to support 90 Wonder locations on the East Coast through the end of the year? That's a good question. I think that that's also what people love actual, kind of brick and mortar food halls for. Maybe it doesn't have quite the diversity of dishes, but you do have a lot of food halls. You have, your kind of more approachable places for a bowl of pasta or a sandwich. And then you have your Indian kati rolls and sushi and things for Chinese food for more kind of diverse array of eaters. I think also, one of the things that they're really pushing is that they start in urban environments, dense urban environments like DC, New York, Boston, but then they go out to the suburbs. They're opening like in Baltimore pretty soon, but they're looking at Dulles and Sterling and beyond. And I think for those suburban diners, there is a little bit more of a lure of having a Jose Andres and Bobby Flay and a Maidon that you could order from versus being in DC where you're like, why, I could just go to a Jose Andres restaurant or I could go to Maidon.
Is it true that none of the food is actually cooked there, that they're reheating pre-made food? That's what it tasted like. I don't know if that's actually true.
So I think that's one misconception. I don't think it's as people, it's not a boil in a bag kind of thing that you get at like hospitals or, military facilities. They do have all electric kitchens that have a fryer, an oven and a water bath, which can reheat things. The reason what they do what they can, you can't have 600 dishes under one roof with everything being like prepped from scratch at that one location. But they do what Cheesecake Factory does, which is a lot of the food is made up to a certain point, prepped to a certain point at a central commissary. Theirs is in New Jersey, and then delivered to the locations with very specific instructions for these digital kitchens, and that they are able to have kind of a staff that is not, kind of a entry level cooks, lightly trained labor, I think is what they said, that can turn out Marcus Samuelsson branded meals by following these digital instructions. So there is cooking that's happening. It just may not be, it's not the kind of cooking you're used to in a small independent restaurant, but it's also not cooked there.
I think you speak to an interesting point of these sort of branded meals where, when I go to a great restaurant that I love, I'm not necessarily thinking of it as a branded meal experience. But for some folks, that might be something they want to, like that might be part of why they want a specific dish because it's branded with this restaurant that they've maybe heard of or that they like or that they associate with quality.
Absolutely. It's kind of the difference of, back in the day in the frozen pizza aisle, why you might have chosen the Wolfgang Puck frozen pizza versus, DiGiorno, that it's something, it says quality. And you see that reflected on the prices in their menu. The Bobby Flay steak is $34, I think, for the filet, for the steak. And that's different than you're going to get for the quality of meat, they say, than the house burger.
The thing that got me into a Wonder for the first time, I had no idea what it was the deal. Mm-hmm. I will say, I probably won't be going back to Wonder anytime soon, but they do have a lot of deals. Do you think it's worth it?
I guess it depends what as you're talking about, it's such a subjective thing. I think right now value is really top of mind for a lot of people, especially in the DC area with everything going on, that people are looking for that, good meal that is not going to break the bank. I ordered them from them myself just to try it out. And I think that I didn't think, there's certain things that were less than I get at a small independent restaurant, but some things that weren't that significantly less that I was like, maybe I could just go to the burrito shop down the street and also, patronize a local restaurant that way. So I think it depends what you're looking for and who you want to support.
Ooh, so I don't think anybody listening would be shocked to hear that I didn't really enjoy it. But as the professional food critic, what did you think eating there? What were your thoughts?
I ordered it from them once. I ordered a bunch of stuff just to try it, but I haven't been, back the golden role of a critic, right, 3 times. So I can't speak with my full professional weight behind me. There are some things I liked more than others, and some kind of things I noticed after having, talked to the Wonder team in terms of, I thought that the egg roll, for example, was very nicely fried, and you didn't get any of that kind of old fryer oil flavor you get from a restaurant that's been around a while. The poke tasted very fresh. Things were also very uniformly cut, almost like a weird, you got a little weird way, but you're like, oh, this is done by a more industrial process than your average place. And it kind of felt like eating airport food, though, because everything came labeled with a QR code, list of ingredients, sometimes instructions that seemed like it was 3 scoops of X, or oh, fold this on a black mat. And I was like, oh, these are instructions for the cook team, but they're somehow still on the food. But then again, I think that some things, it just didn't taste as fresh and as innovative and individual as a lot of food you get in a restaurant. The burrito I got, it had the meat from what would be the barbecue and the beans from barbecue in the burrito, and didn't end up tasting very much like when you think of a Mexican burrito. So that's a very long-winded answer to say I would like to try more before endorsing it. I definitely was not running back.
Yeah, that's a very diplomatic way to put it. Your point earlier of it really is, what if you could have lunch at Amazon? You describing your experience of the QR codes and everything just being, in some ways, that industrialization of the food eating process can be good, where you're like, oh, the uniform slices, the uniformity is probably because it's such a, particular kind of vibe happening. I was going to say kitchen, but wherever the place is in this building where they're making the food.
Absolutely.
But in some ways, I could see it being a double-edged sword, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I also come into it like knowing maybe a little bit too much. Like I've interviewed the team twice since they came to DC, and have read umpteen articles about Wonder, trying to get doing my own research, and so I really know how the sausage is made. And there's a reason why that there's a saying that you don't want to know that, because I can imagine the food that's delivered that is then kind of mechanically made on site. And it's just, you have that kind of in your mind.
What kind of things did the team at Wonder tell you when you all spoke?
I spoke with Jason Rusk, who leads Wonder's restaurant operations, both before they opened in DC and now they're expanding. There are a couple of things I thought were really interesting. One is that they use their restaurant spaces as billboards, which I think you could relate to. You see these big Wonder signs popping up all around town. You're like, what is this? Why are there so many of these things coming in? And they choose their real estate, just like any business, very strategically because of their format, because they don't use, they use all electric kitchens. There's no smoke. There's no gas. There's no of these things that require a lot of permits and build outs and things like restaurants. Like they can slide into the former Lululemon space on 14th Street, no problem. So they can be in like high density areas and they kind of take a Starbucks approach, like, open a bunch of locations within close proximity, get the brand awareness out there, as well as kind of saturating the market in that area for Wonder. They also open up within a 10-mile delivery radius to their kind of market. So what they see is like people who would order from Wonder. I think like their ideal delivery time is 22 minutes, which is why you have all these kind of Wonders like clustered together in areas like Navy Yard and 14th Street, things of that sort. And then they kind of spread out from there and go into the suburbs after this kind of urban reputation is established.
I wonder if we're going to actually see this place have staying power. I mean, I think this is a thing that happens in DC. It happened with Foxtrot, where a company comes in, they blow up, and then they shut down almost overnight. Do you think that is something we could see with Wonder, or is it too soon to tell?
I think it's something I wondered myself in terms of, comparing it to a Tate versus a Foxtrot. Like, look at Tate, it's everywhere. It delivers a good product. Whereas Foxtrot flamed out pretty famously. I don't know their workings and financials enough to be able to go behind the scenes and say one way or the other. I do think there is some, I think naturally in DC, folks like to support local brands, and there are local brands involved, but that, people do still crave that experience and do like going to an actual food hall, because you can sit with your friends and you can chat about the food and who got what, and then make a day of it and go, hang out. I don't see it replacing food halls. I don't see it anytime soon, actual food halls. And I also don't know how it'll fare in the city versus the suburbs.
And it's interesting that you say this, because Wonder is taking over at a time when traditional local food halls have been closing. I'm thinking of places like Friendship Heights, the Block in Annandale.
Yeah, and I think the food hall model, it's tough. It's a notoriously tough model of food business, because think about it. Like most food halls, like it has to have a big footprint to get all those vendors in. It's a lot of coordination, depending on whether you're going to follow a model like the Roost and have all kind of like mostly, neighborhood restaurant group arms and then some local vendors, or whether it's going to be all different kinds of local vendors. It takes a lot of things. And that's actually kind of, Wonder is like the anti-food hall in that. It goes into these tiny spaces. It's all basically out of one operation. It's very streamlined, but it still doesn't have that food hall element, which is the hall.
Yeah, it's the food hall without the hall.
Yeah, I was calling it a fast food hall because it really does take a lot of cues from, fast food, which love or hate it, I think. But when people think about Bobby Flay steak, they don't necessarily think McDonald's.
At Mosaic Theater, don't miss a New York Times critic pick and must-see play of the season, A Case for the Existence of God. From the award-winning screenwriter of The Whale and MacArthur genius Samuel D. Hunter, A Case for the Existence of God is about two fathers from very different backgrounds who form a powerful bond of friendship. With humor and hope, the play illuminates the crisis of male friendships and demonstrates how we can learn to communicate over divides of race, class, and sexuality. A Case for the Existence of God plays November 13th through December 7th at the Atlas Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now at mosaictheater.org. Life can flip on a dime. 1 minute, everything's normal, and the next, someone else's mistake shakes your world upside down. And that's when you need a team you can count on. NACE Law Group has been standing up for DC families for decades, fighting for neighbors hurt by medical malpractice, wrongful deaths, and serious injuries. They don't just settle quickly or push papers. They dig in, fight hard, and make sure every client gets the justice they deserve. And here's something that I personally love about them. They are a longtime supporter of this very podcast. Because just like us, and just like you, they care about this community and the folks who call it home. So if you've been hurt or someone that you care about has, just pick up the phone. Call NACE Law Group. They'll stand with you, fight for your family, and make sure your rights are protected. And who knows, maybe you'll even see him at a CityCast live show. Visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com. That's WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com.
You know, when most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Have you heard from customers about how they're feeling about so many of these wonders popping up all over the place in DC?
Yeah, I definitely also, there's a pretty active Wonder TikTok channels. A lot of people, not just in DC, but also in New York, other places. I've seen some reactions where people kind of feel duped in some way because they get there and they're like, oh, I thought this was a food hall and it's really just a ghost kitchen, which the Wonder folks will say, we are not a ghost kitchen, because they think of ghost kitchens as, those places that kind of operate anonymously in warehouse districts like Cloud Kitchen. But I also think people want quality. They want to feel like if they are having a Jose Andres salad, it is kind of that Jose Andres quality. And I don't know if that they always deliver.
That's another diplomatic way of putting it. I don't know that they always deliver. I can endorse that message.
Well, they almost always deliver, but they don't know if they deliver to the customer's expectation. What was your experience? So you seem like you had like a really, really bad trial. So tell me about it.
I did. So I think I might have ordered badly. So I kind of came in without a lot of information, right?
Yeah.
I really should have ordered something that was going to be a little bit easier to manage expectations around. Mm-hmm. I got the pad thai, which was a very big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I get Thai food all the time, and I've had good Thai food, bad Thai food. Mm-hmm. You never know what you're going to get. There's a lot of variables. And when I tell you it was not just a bad batch of pad thai, it might have been the most, it was bad in ways I couldn't even really name. It was like, oh, these noodles are both, it seems like they're at the same time undercooked and also overcooked. Like it was bad in new ways that I struggled to put into words. And so I think had I have gone, like the person I was with just got like a $5 burrito. And I almost wonder if that would have been a safer option. But again, at this point, I had not done all the background information that you had to understand what the drill was in this place.
Yeah, and exactly. I think, also speaking of variety, it took me about, because also I was thinking about, again, overthinking about what I should get reflects X, Y, and Z. But it took me like 45 minutes to decide what to order because I was like, oh my God, there are so many options. And then I was like, do I want hot and sour? I got a weird mix. I got like poke and hot and sour soup and a burger and barbecue. And yeah, and it was a weird mix of things. It also ended up being a weird meal because I was like eating 5 different cuisines at once. And just like a lot of places, I used to work in restaurant kitchens and I could tell like, there are certain things that really do well when you prep them in advance, like barbecue. Like the brisket was pretty nice and had a nice smoky flavor. It was pretty soft. But then there's other things that don't do as well, that don't hold up as well. Like a bacon cheeseburger was pretty kind of disastrous when we got it. It was a little dry and edges were crispy and it just seemed a little squished in general. But yeah, it's hard to get. I mean, just like, again, kind of like Cheesecake Factory. People love Cheesecake Factory, but it's really hard to get all those right. And you definitely aren't going to go into Cheesecake Factory and have their burrito or their pad thai and say, oh yes, if I go to, the US borderlands or if I go to Thailand, this is going to be what I'm getting.
Yes, I think it might be the kind of place where what you order really matters because there are plenty of dishes. Like when I make barbecue, I almost think it's better the next day reheated because it's had a chance to sort of congeal.
Congeal, exactly. And the problem is the only downside is a place when you have 600 plus things to order. Chances are not everything is going to be a winner.
I also find that a little bit stressful. Do you ever get the feeling when you're ordering under duress because you've been given too many options?
Yes. And I'm terrible. I mean, I even do this on like the DoorDash or Uber Eats platform. I'll be like, ooh, do I want unconventional diner? But like, oh man, there's Rosica. But then, oh man, like should I just get like a taco? And then I just like end up walking to Sweetgreen.
Yes. I feel the same. Okay, so food halls more generally, if you had to say, what is an example of a food hall at its best? Like, this is the peak of what food halls have to offer. This is the ideal of food halls.
I mean, I think Union Market is an amazing example, but it's also very rare. I mean, it's very long established at this point. I remember covering it for Washingtonian when it was first opening, and everyone was like, there's this thing called a food hall, but it's not a food court. And we actually had to explain the difference between food hall and food court in like our stories. And they've also had, they have an incredible amount of backing from Eden's, which owns most of the property, not only Union Market itself, but around that area. So it's an incredibly well-funded, well-backed project that's brought in just an incredible amount of life into that neighborhood. And obviously there's also some stressors with the gentrification of the area as well. But I think like in terms of just it itself, the food hall, I think they get really great local partners. I think they've launched kind of smaller businesses and helps kind of fuel their growth. And it's become like a community gathering place. And I think there's a lot of places that also, they want to activate with yoga classes and concerts and winter festivals and all these things. And they do a really good job of that as well.
Wait, stupid question. What is the difference between a food hall and a food court?
So I think back in the day, it was explained as like a food hall is more of an artisanal kind of like local vendors and small businesses, where a food court is what you find in a mall that has a Panda Express and a Taco Bell and an Auntie Anne's pretzels, which, nothing against the food court. I grew up in Tyson's going to the food court. So love me a food court. But I think that the idea is that it's somehow more urban and more sophisticated than your average food court.
Elevated,
yeah, an elevated riff.
So what do you see as the future of food halls in DC going forward? Do you think folks are over the food hall craze? Is Wonder like a nail in the coffin? What do you think?
I don't think people are going to wake up and say, I want to either like go to a food hall or sit on my couch and order from Wonder and decide from there. I don't think it means like the death of real deal brick and mortar food halls. I mean, I think people have criticized Wonder is that, okay, yes, it's a venture capital backed, business that's snapping up a lot of retail and restaurant space that could otherwise go to small local businesses. But I don't think people are going to make the decision of like, do I want to go hang out with my friends and try like a bunch of different food and like have a day of it and maybe some day drinks? Or do I want to order pizza and poke and ice cream and sit on my couch? There's two very, very different experiences. I think where Wonder could edge other food businesses out of the market is in that delivery kind of window. Like, are you going to order from like a compliments only or a bandit taco? Both of which, by the way, are offered on the Wonder platform because of the acquisition of Grubhub, they do offer a delivery from local restaurants. Or are you going to order from one place where you can get all these various things?
Okay, final question. I asked you what you thought the ideal food hall situation was. Do you have a food hall at its worst?
I don't know if I've had a food hall that is worse. I think that we've done, in doing kind of food hall stories and packages for Washingtonian in the past, seeing food halls that don't have a lot of funding or don't have a lot of direction, because again, it's hard to kind of work in harmony with a bunch of different businesses. And I think it's really hard to kind of support all these small businesses at once, especially if you're trying to do delivery out of a food hall or kind of make it one universal platform. By the way, I should also shout out to the Roost. I think they do a really good job on Capitol Hill as something that's not quite as like huge, ambitious scope as Eden's Union Market, but a really great local food hall that serves the community, has great vendors. I love the mix of like Caruso's Grocery and the pizza joints and the sushi. I think it's just with a lot of when you talk about like a bad food hall experience, like I think the bad food hall experiences have gone as a place that like doesn't have a lot of diversity. You go in, maybe there's like some stalls that are closed, which was kind of maybe like the block towards the end, places like that. What about you? Do you think have you gone into food halls where you're like, this is just not doing it for me?
I'm not a huge food hall person, but I don't think I have one that I think is horrible other than the experience that I had at Wonder. Just to be clear, I'm willing to give it another shot.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shouted at the Roost because I do think that is a food hall done well, where it does maybe have a smaller footprint, but the stuff that's in it, I really, really appreciate. Also, it seems cohesive. Like,
Yeah.
everything seems intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true. I mean, even with Upside Down More in Roslyn, I was talking to the owner, Nick Freshman, and talking about intentionality, kind of what makes a food hall work. And they're really doing a lot to bring in local businesses. Wonder opened like 0.2 miles from where they are.
Wow.
And so I was like, this is kind of interesting. Nick was saying, they're just two very different concepts. But he didn't think that basically just a business that has a bunch of pushing capital behind it wasn't going to solve everything. But I think they do approach too, that they want local business. They've also said, he made a point that a food hall can't just be about like the most exciting out there, huge breadth of cuisines without having a turkey sandwich, because a lot of people use food halls as a place for business gatherings and you go to your colleagues and you work for the afternoon, things like that. And not everyone's going to want Singapore street noodles and sushi. Some people might want like a really good turkey sandwich or a salad.
Amen. I am that person. Give me a turkey sandwich sometimes. Sometimes you just want it simple.
Exactly. Well, maybe next time we should meet at Wonder and give it another try together.
I will be so down. I am willing to give it another go. Anna, I will see you there. Thanks for being here.
Let's do it. All right. Thank you.
That is all for today here on CityCast DC. And if you're scratching your head wondering how DC wound up with so many food halls, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. And if you like conversations like this one, consider becoming a CityCast DC neighbor. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane Sihu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text them yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with like funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.